What are some of the key things that you need to do to be successful as an engineer in your career, both in the short term and the long term? In this episode, I'm actually going to be interviewed by one of our instructors, Ann Tomalavich, and Ann is really going to push me on talking about some of the things that I've done or we've helped engineers do at EMI to be successful in their careers. Before we jump in, a quick word from our sponsor, PPI, a Kaplan company.
PPI provides expert prep courses and study resources designed to help you pass the FE and PE exams the first time. PPI's live online courses include hours of lectures, problem-solving demonstrations, exam strategy sessions, office hours, and a passing guarantee. Check out PPI today at ppi2pass.com to see all the options available for FE and PE exam prep. Now let's dive into today's episode.
All right, now I'm excited to welcome our guest onto the show for today, although I say our guest, but I'm ultimately going to be the guest. but Ann Tomalavich has been doing PM instruction with EMI for a lot of years now, and we've done a lot of sessions together. I like to refer to her as Ann Earn Value Tomalavich because that's her favorite topic, although she does well on all the topics. But so Ann, welcome to the Civil Engineering Podcast.
Thanks, Anthony, and welcome to you to the Civil Engineering Podcast. This is our conversation with you, and I would like to entitle this Anthony Fasano, the man, the myth, and the legend.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
No pressure.
Yeah. How does it feel to be on the other side of the mic?
Yeah, we'll find out, but so far it feels right.
Yeah. Well, I know that a lot of fans... you do have a lot of fans, but I bet they don't know all that much about you, and they would like to get to know you. So you can probably already guess some of my questions, but I hope that I have a couple that will really gobsmack you. So let's go ahead and dive in. All right, let's get the earned value question out of the way first. Is a CPI, cost performance index of 1.1 good or bad?
Oh, boy. I say that would be good and that your project is doing well.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So you get an A. Ding, ding, ding. All right. When was the exact moment you knew that you wanted to be an engineer? Do you remember that?
So, yeah, I was in high school, junior, senior year. And, my daughter just graduated high school last night, which is a little scary. But thinking back to when I was at that stage, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I know a lot of kids don't know what they want to do in high school, but what I did know is that I really liked math. I really liked science. And when I put those two together, the advice that I was getting from people, whether it be my parents or guidance counselor, was, hey, if you like those things, engineering might be good for you. That was like maybe around junior year. And then there was a friend of mine at high school whose father had a small civil engineering firm. And so I was able to get an internship with that firm, even in high school, actually. And I was doing some land surveying and kind of put everything together. I like math, like science. I liked outdoors. And I know civil engineering, you could work outdoors, work on sites. So kind of all those things together, I decided to go to college and major in civil engineering.
Okay, excellent. Now, I did mention to you that I had been writing down some questions in the notes field in my iPhone. And when I wrote that one down, it instead of engineer, the autocorrect suggested astronaut. So you're an engineer, you studied engineering. When did the entrepreneurial bug bite? Did you ever envision yourself when you were in high school or grade school having your own business?
Yeah, I think I always had kind of an entrepreneurial mindset, growing up, doing things like lemonade stands and stuff like that is your first hint at it. And then, getting into college and doing, making money however I could. I did like the network marketing thing. I tried different things to try to, make money and, be able to pay for myself, right? Like make your own way type of thing. And then once I got into my engineering career, I just kind of always felt like this is not like the end of the road for me in terms of what I want to do. Like I want to do something on my own. I want to build something. And if it can be related to engineering, great. And so I think generally speaking, I just always had an interest in the idea of growing things, growing people, And it was like those things added up kind of led me to get to where we are at EMI. And so it was like entrepreneurial, engineering, growth mindset, all those things kind of put together.
Excellent. Wow. Now, what are you proudest of so far in your life, whether it's work related or family related personally? What are you proudest of, do you think?
I would say just the idea of growth for people. So whether it's like with your kids, with my family, with my team at EMI, just proud of the idea of you have the ability to grow yourself, grow your career, grow your life, and just trying to help people do that. Again, whether it's family members, whether it's team members at EMI, whether it's all the engineers that we've helped through our podcast, through our programs. So I'm just proud that I've had the opportunity to be able to help other people and help them grow. I mean, at EMI, our values are give, guide, grow. We give our all, we guide each other, we grow together. And we've actually recently redid this in an equation format. Of course, we're engineers. And it's give plus guide equals grow. Because if you're giving every day and you're guiding other people, then you're going to grow and they're going to grow. That's how the equation works. And so I'm just proud that I have the ability to help people grow, my own family, my EMI family, engineers that are listening. And that's probably the thing that when I look back on my career, that's what kind of drives me on a regular basis.
Yeah, and I experience that every time I work with you and even think about you. So I would expect that to be your answer.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you would do differently? So go ahead and take a mulligan if you want to.
Sometimes I think about that, but I think what I've learned about business, career, family life, entrepreneurship is that you're only good at it now because of the mistakes you made in the past, right? So if you go back and say, hey, I wish I would have done this differently, you might not be where you are today if you did it differently, right? Because you had to mess it up the first time to figure out the right way to do it. And so, I experience this a lot. Like we have an office here at EMI now in Northern New Jersey, and there's a business owner who opened a business kind of next door, and I've been kind of going there and visit him from time to time. And I'm kind of thinking like he's doing a lot of stuff that I don't think I'd be doing, right? But like he doesn't know because he just started his business, right? So maybe I can tell him because I had already made some mistakes, right? So I think really I don't think of it as, hey, I want to take a mulligan. I think of it as like, let's look at everything I've learned so far from all my experiences and then keep using them every day to get better, right? And that's what I tell the team at EMI. Like whenever we make mistakes, which we do, I just tell them listen, we can't undo it, right? The only thing we could do is look at what happened in this situation and try to learn from it and make sure that doesn't happen again. And who knows, maybe you can improve something and make it better, right? And so that's the way I look at it. I mean, I don't really think of anything that I would have done differently. I mean, I think just maybe the only one thing I may have done differently is coming up with for example, the give, guide, grow values at EMI, I think is a great thing because it's simple. And it's something that everybody can wrap their head around and be passionate about every day. Probably wish I would have done something like that earlier on in the business, right? Let's have a simple, value structure that we can all follow together. But again, maybe I didn't do it because I didn't know how to do it yet.
But you were already doing it.
Right. We were doing it. We weren't labeling it.
Without putting words around it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it occurred to you.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Somebody shared a quote with me years ago. I think the gentleman's name was Emil Coué, Coue accent. And it was, every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. I love that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's true. And I think that's really, if that was your goal in your career, you'd have a great career, right? Every day, just get a little bit better. And if you do that, you'll get. There's another quote that I heard recently. I did an interview recently with the CEO of a engineering company, and he shared a quote with me. I don't know who said the quote, but I really liked it. It was, "When all else doesn't work, work works." So, that's what. And I tell the team here, if we show up every day and do our work, good things happen, right? If you get a little upset, you get a little down, you're going through a rough patch, show up and do your work, right? Work works. Like you can't argue that work works. I mean, that's how people build companies. That's how people build families. Like you show up every day, you do the work. So I think just that idea of incrementally doing your work every day, building good habits and getting better at what you're doing is what differentiates people that are really successful and people that maybe haven't had as much success in their careers because they haven't taken the time to show up every day, do the work, and really as you're doing the work, put good habits in place to make sure you're doing it, over and over and over. And I mean, all of our podcasts, we have all these podcasts and they've done really well. And I think sometimes maybe we take them for granted, but if you look at how many podcasts are out there that start and then stop because people can't keep them up because of the amount of work that it requires every day, every week on a regular basis.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So just do take the next right step, do the next right thing.
Yeah. And then do it again and then do it again and then do it again. Right. It's like, you want to get healthier. You don't go to the gym every once in a while.
Right.
You go to the gym 3 to 5 times a week and you do it every week for like months in a row.
Mm-hmm. And you don't do your laundry just once.
Right. It's like that for most things in life. I tell people like most things in life that are worth doing, you're not doing them like randomly or once in a while.
Mm-hmm. You're doing them consistently because they're important.
Right.
Yeah. And speaking of important, I've noticed that family is very important to you. You seem to be very good at work-life balance and you're juggling your business that is growing exponentially. There's that engineer term in there. I had to fit it in. But you always seem to have time for your family. How do you do that? What's your secret?
Well, any regular listeners of the podcast are going to know this framework already because I mention the 80-20 rule all the time. And I have to mention it here because it's really if you have like a life philosophy, my life philosophy is to follow the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, which basically says, 20% of the actions in your life are driving 80% of your success or your enjoyment, right? And so if you come to work each day or, on your weekends with your family and you say, what are the things that are really going to drive a lot of impact or happiness or revenue in a company? Like, what are those things? Then I can focus on those things. Because the reality of it is people complain all the time that they have too many things to do. There's not enough time in the day. But the problem is that they're doing the wrong things. Right?
Okay.
Like, how many people do I see on their phones scrolling through social media? Like, that's not a good use of time. Like, you should be doing something that's impactful, right? So for me, I've spent the last probably 5 or 10 years figuring out those 20% of things at home and at work and just focusing on them. And then the other stuff, I either eliminate. A couple of years ago, I deleted all social media off my phone, which was one of the best things I've ever done because that was just a time waster. And, like another example, like these smartwatches, I don't have one, nor do I ever want one. But like now someone has the same email messages on their hand, right?
Yeah.
So now I'm in a meeting with someone and I'm talking with you and I'm having lunch with you. And how many times is my wrist buzzing? And then if I read it there, number one, I'm taking engagement away from our conversation. Number two, I'm going to read it there and then I'm going to go back to my computer later and read it again.
Yeah.
So it's like stuff like that you need to cut out of your life if you want to be able to have a good balance. And you can replace some of those things that you're doing duplicatively or, things that aren't very impactful by doing things that are just more impactful and putting all your energy into those things. It's like, I'll give you a good example of this. I'm a big hockey fan and I'm watching the Stanley Cup playoffs, the finals, and the Florida Panthers are in the finals. And I was watching the game the other day and they said that so if you're not familiar with hockey, those of you out there listening, it's very basic sport. There's 6 players on the ice, 5 players and a goalie for each team. And the objective is to get the puck in the net. And the goaltender is supposed to keep it out of the net. So the Florida Panthers invested in 5 goaltender coaches for their one goalie. There's someone that works with him on his stretching, someone that works with him on the lower part of the net, someone that works on him probably with his mental approach to the game. And you're thinking to yourself like, dude, who spends on 5 coaches for one player, right? But then you think about it from an 80-20 perspective. If the other team can't score on your goalie, you're never going to lose. So it's a perfect example, like in your life and in your career, like what are the things that like if you do that well, probably everything else is going to go really well for you. And that's where you got to focus your time. And that's how, I feel like I've been able to do that with EMI, be able to have a good balanced life at home. And that's what I try to teach my family and teach my EMI family, the same thing. So everyone's kind of operating under that philosophy, because when you really step back and look at it, people waste so much time these days on things that they just don't need to. Reading the same text on a phone and a watch and a computer, scrolling through Facebook and looking at 80% of the posts on Facebook have no relevance to you, and you'll never need anything from them.
Yeah.
So those types of things you need to be pretty aggressive about if you want to focus on the big things.
And 80% of those posts will make you furious anyway.
Probably depressed, furious,
Yeah, exactly. So what footprints will you leave? Now, you tread lightly on the earth, right? And I'm serious, and you wear life like a loose garment, but what do you think will be your legacy, your footprints?
Well, I still have a lot of goals I'd like to achieve. One of the things that we'd like to achieve at EMI is we want to start kind of a foundation that we'd like to call the Give, Guide, Grow Foundation that would be focused on youth leadership, probably with a STEM spin on it. But one of the things that I don't like about today's youth is too much screens, not as much social activity or physical activity. And, I've seen it with my 3 kids. Like, they say I don't want to do this sport. I don't want to go to this club. But then, like, if we sign them up and we force them to go, they love it. Right? So that's a good lesson, because that just shows that if you just let, like, your kids or even like some of your team members just say, hey, I'm not interested in that, and they don't want to push themselves, and you don't push them, then they're not going to go anywhere. But if you do push them, then they could really flourish. So what we want to do with this foundation is create more programs for kids to be able to get out there and do leadership type things, volunteer in the community, do speaking, do sports together, interact with each other. We work with a lot of big engineering companies across the country. And when I talk to these engineering companies, when they're hiring kids out of school today, one of the things that they tell us all the time is that these kids don't know how to communicate. They can't write. They can't have interactions with people. So basically, like, they might be able to do the engineering calculations, but they can't do the other stuff that you need to be great project managers and great leaders. And so to me, that starts at the very young age and getting them comfortable with that. So, that's one thing I want to do, and I hope to do it in the next 5 years. And the other thing that I want to do, I don't know if a lot of people know this or not, but I'm going to open a bookstore one day. And this sounds old school, but it's going to be a bookstore. And it's going to be like, because I read about 10 books a month, right? If you come into the books, it's not your everyday bookstore. It's not you go on Amazon and buy a book. It's you come to the bookstore and say, hey, I've got this challenge I'm dealing with, and I need help with it. And then whether it's me or, team members there, we're going to say, okay, let's think about this. Let's go into our library and see what books are perfect for that, right? Here's a great book. It's got a great framework for that. Take it home, go through it and practice this. It's going to be, like a game changer for you. Because to me, like, books, most of what I've accomplished with EMI came from reading the right books and applying the stuff. And I just did a video on this the other day for our team internally, is my process for reading a book, which is I read the book and I'll highlight important parts. Then typically what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll also tab up the pages that I've highlighting on them. Then I'll go back to those pages and I'll take like note cards and I'll write the important notes on the note cards. So at the end of the day, I've got about 10, 15, 20 note cards for each book. So now if I was reading a book about public speaking and I'm like, oh, I got a big talk coming up, I want to brush up on it, I could pull my note cards out on the public speaking book and refresh myself. So,
excellent.
I think the way people read today is, I'll read a little bit of this book or read a bit of that book. But my goal is like, find a good book that can really help you and really read it once, read it twice, get the skills out of it and apply it. And then you can really transform yourself.
Yeah, really eat the book.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's crazy about books is you could spend $10 to $20 on a book and build a skill that could change your life forever. Just got to take the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And this will be a bookstore or a library or a little bit of each?
It'll be a bookstore, library, maybe even coffee shop thrown in, and maybe some discussions about certain skill sets and topics. And so that's kind of, my kids laugh at me when I tell them about that. They see it like a commercial property for sale in town, and they're like, "Oh, Dad, look, there's your bookstore." They're making fun of me. I said, "That's fine." I said, "People have made fun of me for years, and I'm still doing all right."
Yeah. You are. Well, so that, speaking of your kids, that brings me to my next question, which is, when your kids roll their eyes, what are they thinking? Right?
Why do I have to keep hearing about this stupid 80-20 rule? No, I mean, I think kids are like, like I've spent my career helping people to grow, like I said earlier, right? So naturally, I want to help my kids grow, but the kids aren't open to that, right? They're open to like, what am I looking at on Instagram? I want to go to the, get a Pliables with my friends or Starbucks. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit challenging because it's like, for me, like, I live in a world where like, all I want to do is get better, right? Like, I want to improve. I want to read the next book. I want to meet the next client, build the next program. But kids are like, I just want to hang out with my friends today. Right? So it could be a little challenging, and they can like roll their eyes because like, oh, do we have to hear about this again? Like, we know we should go to the gym. We know we should be doing that, So I think it's tough. I think as parents, you need to try to connect with your kids and figure out ways to get them to grow, but it has to be fun for them, right? So there's got to be some thought put into it, and try to do it in a way that will work. One of the things I'm trying to do here is I'm starting like a volunteer program at my church, because a lot of high school students do want to volunteer for their college volunteer hours. So, we have a senior home in town here where they're looking for kids to come in and have like game nights with the seniors and stuff like that. So I'm trying to put together I guess this is maybe like the beginnings of what I want to do with like this foundation and youth institute. I'm trying to get into it a little bit. So I think my kids, when they roll their eyes, they're probably like, oh, I don't want to hear more about like what I need to do to like be better. Or, like, I just want to like, hang out with my friends. So that's probably what they're rolling their eyes at.
Yeah. And, as you were talking about that, I'm thinking that maybe your kids could help you. They could advise you on this foundation. And at the same time, they would maybe learn some of the skills that you're trying to impart to other folks.
Yeah, that would be great if I can get them to do that. If I can, twist their arm enough.
Yeah. What compliments do you think your kids would give you?
Well, I think my kids would compliment me on just like supporting them. Like, I always try to make sure that they have what they need each and every day to be successful, right? Get up, have a good breakfast. You need help with homework. Did you do your chores at home? Which I know that they don't like that, but, I think they ultimately know probably deep down inside it's good for them. So I would think at the end of the day, they would be thankful for that. Like I said, it's a tricky thing because a lot of times they just feel like you're picking on them. But that's like your job, right? So I would hope that they would kind of realize that. And the way I say it to them sometimes is like, if you had a kid, like, what would you do? What would you do? Right? Like, you'd be telling them this too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And kids don't come with an operator manual, right?
Right.
Yeah. And there's no QR code that you can watch YouTube.
I mean, I just try to like always tell them, and I think this goes for anybody, is that like, what you get out of life is what you put into it, right? Like, that's why I titled my book Engineer Your Own Success, right? Like, it's up to you. Like, there's unlimited opportunities out there, right? So it's not like if you're not successful, you're not where you want to be in 5-10 years from now. It's probably because of you, nobody else. And that's like a key thing, I think, for people to remember, because, take it and run with it.
Yeah. All right. My next question is, what compliments do you think Jill, your wife, would give you?
She'd probably say similar stuff, like supportive of them, like, doing what they try to help them and her do what they need to be successful. Jill is very detailed and analytical engineer, which is like the opposite of me. So probably one of the things she wowould say is like, I wish she would pay attention to more details sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, Jill and my kids would say, like, hopefully compliment on the support that I provide to them, just in terms of, like I said, getting them out in the day, making sure they have what they need to succeed. If they're struggling with something, try to help them through it. And that's really what I think as a parent, you want to try to do, and a parent and a spouse, you're trying to do every day, right? Like, do as much as you can to help them be successful, obviously, but you don't want to do it for them.
Absolutely. What are your bucket list places? I know you like to travel. You were in Spain and Morocco last year. Where are you headed next, and where do you want to go?
So we had the chance to go to Italy in 2016, and I found some family members and learned Italian, and we spent some time with them in the summer. It was amazing. And like COVID and everything happened, we haven't gotten back there. So we talked about really trying to get back there to see them again. So that'd be something that I'd want to do. The other thing that I'd like to do is do some kind of meditation retreat. It was actually one of my goals this year. About 5 or 6 years ago, I mean, like, I try to move fast. I'm like, my brain's going. And I think I want to try to slow it down. That, like, I made that decision about 5 years ago. And I talked to an engineer, and she was doing some meditation. She turned me on to an app, and I started using it. And I've been able to build a pretty good meditation practice of a minimum of like 10 minutes a day, maybe sometimes 20. And, over years that adds up, right? And so one of my goals for this year was to really try to do a meditation retreat where you go somewhere for 2 or 3 days. And that's pretty much, you're doing a lot of sitting, a lot of meditating, a lot of reflection. So I hired a meditation coach this year in January. You can't tell people to improve yourself if you're not improving your own self, right? And she's really good, and she's helped me get some more tactics and strategies. And one of my goals for this year is to try to go and do the retreat. So I've identified a place in New Mexico that I like, that I'm looking at, and I might try to go there and do that. And I think in the world we live in, our attention spans are gone. And you have the ability to get that back and to build like more patience and thoughtfulness and mindfulness into your like repertoire and your mindset. And you should do that if you can, because I could see it with my kids, their friends, like everything is instantaneous today. Text messages, social media. Like my kids can't even watch a show that has commercials because they can't make it through the commercials. Right? But like long term, that's not really a great thing, I don't think. So that's something in terms of places to go. I'd want to get back to Italy again. I'd want to do some kind of meditation practice in a place where I can go and really challenge myself to just sit, no computer, no laptop, no phone for a few days, which would be, pretty uncomfortable for someone in today's age. And then also one other thing I'd like to do is maybe do a little more traveling in the U.S. with the family, like maybe like a Yellowstone or some of the beautiful parks that we have in the U.S. that, we just haven't taken the time to go out and see.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do have a lot. We're very fortunate here. So the next question I was going to ask you was something around what you just said. But you may or may not be able to answer this question off the top of your head. But if you think about it, complete this sentence. So far, 2024 has been the year of blank.
So far, the year of 2024 has been the year of, I would say, I would go back to growth. And I say that because at EMI we're growing. And it can be challenging when you're growing a company because there's there's a balancing act, right? Like, should we hire more people? Do we have enough revenue for that? But we do have clients and we need to service them. And, we try to do A++ work at EMI and you've been a big part of that.
Thank you.
So I think growth, but then with growth comes challenges, right? So being able to grow without burning people out is always something that I'm always thinking about, like in building a business. Like, you're an entrepreneur, you want to move fast, you want to grow something great, you want to do it with great people, and then you become friendly with these people and they become your family. Like, I listen, a lot of people spend more time with the people at work than they do at home. That's just the way the work week is set up. And so you get to know these people, you become friendly with them, and you don't want to then like push them over the edge because we're like, hey, we got to keep going, got to keep moving. So I think it's been a year of growth for us. For me personally, for my family, we had daughter graduate high school, a lot of things going on at home. And then at EMI with growth, we've gotten some new larger projects. We've kind of gotten into the public sector, which is something different for us. So I think it's a year of growth, and I think how you handle growth in your life is important, because everyone sees it as a positive, and it can be a great positive, but with it comes other things. Like you talked about earlier, you want to have balance. So for me, I have like fundamental things I do each day. I do the meditation, I do some Tai Chi, I try to go to the gym, I try to read, have dinner with the family, right? Make sure that they're successful. So it's like you got to have like a non-negotiables. And no matter how much you're growing your career, your business, everything else, I want to do those things. If I don't do those things, then I'm getting out of where I want to be.
Mm-hmm. They're your 20%.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They really are the 20% that's making you successful. And that's what I tell people at EMI all the time. And people, like if we're trying to help someone be a new manager, be a new leader, like the first time they're leading someone or managing projects, I always tell them like the most important thing every day is like, and I like to use this 80-20 chart. It's basically just 4 quadrants, right? One axis is impact and one axis is effort. So you've got 4 types of tasks you can work on. You can work on tasks that are low effort, but they drive high impact, right? You can work on tasks that are high effort and high impact, like writing a really big proposal for your company. It's going to take a long time, but if you get that project, it's a huge win for your company, right? Then you've got tasks that are low impact and high effort, like the worst thing you could do, right? Spending a whole bunch of time on something that's driving very little impact. And then you have like low effort tasks that are low impact. And like the example I give of that is like paying your bills, right? Like, listen, you got to pay your bills because you have to do it. But paying your bills is not out there helping you inspire thousands of people per se, but it has to be done. So I think if you have those quadrants, like if you, every Monday morning, if you looked at your tasks for the week and you put them in those 4 quadrants, that could inform your approach to the week. And for me, I try to focus on the high impact tasks early in the week and early in my days when I'm fresh. And then towards the end of the days when I'm tired, or, end of the week when I'm just trying to wrap things up, I might look at some of those lower impact tasks. And I think that's a very big fundamental approach to life. And I think the challenge for engineering professionals, and I say this in our productivity session, is what we want to do by nature is have a list of things to do and check them all off, right? But the problem with the list is that it's not in any order most of the time. Like we'll just go down and like whatever I happen to write down first, I'm just going to do that first. But that's not your most important task necessarily. So I would just say for everybody out there, if you want to be successful in your career, it's all about doing the right things, not doing the most things, doing the right things and doing them in the right order.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen you in our sessions talk about that quadrant with the impact and the effort, and to have that visual as opposed to a linear list, I think is very impactful.
Yeah. Right. Because it helps you to focus on the right quadrant one at a time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So the year 2025 will be the year of...
Let's see, the year 2025 will be the year of, I would say, maybe use the word giving. And the reason I say that is because we do really want to start getting into some of these other initiatives like youth leadership that I mentioned to you before, more volunteer work. One of the things we're actually doing at EMI, which I haven't even mentioned to all of our team members yet, so if they're watching this, they'll learn here, is we do want to try to create some opportunities for volunteering for our team members. I think it's an important thing. It's in line with our values of give, guide, grow. It's the same thing I'm doing at home with the volunteer program at the church. And so one of our clients does this, and I think it's really awesome. They have like missions that are out there, and they sponsor their employees to go on a mission. So you don't, you still get paid for your work. You go on a mission to like another country or another location in the U.S. and you help people that need help. And then you're doing it under the sponsorship of the company, and then you come back. Mm-hmm. I thought it was really good. I was doing a training with their project managers, and one of the PMs said, yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to Alaska next week to help build homes as part of a mission that the company's sponsoring me on.
Wow. So it's kind of like Engineers Without Borders, but it's under the aegis of the company.
Yeah, right. The company's like finding these things and sponsoring them, or you can go and find it yourself and come back to the company and ask them to sponsor you on the trip. And so, which I think is great, because I mean, the reason it's part of our values, give, guide, grow, is because I think giving and helping others makes you a better person and helps you and them grow. So, and it's good for people to get a little change once in a while, right? Take a week off, go help people and come back. And I'm sure everyone's going to be better for it, right? And I also think that when people go out for a week or two, people in the company get pushed a little bit more, right? And they got to cover for them and they got to help them and they got to learn something new so everyone can kind of grow from it. In fact, I listened to this one kind of business coach and he said that when he starts working with business owners, what he tells them is within the first year of us working together, you're going to take a 4-week vacation where you can't talk to anybody within your company.
4 weeks.
4 weeks. So that the main reason being is
back to back.
Yeah. The main reason being is because a lot of businesses fail because everything is predicated on the owner. And that's just like not a safe, scalable way to build a business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Kind of like delegating on steroids.
Yeah, and just like having systems and processes in place so it's not so reliant on one person because it's not good for the company, it's not good for the individual. So 2025 will be hopefully about giving, and maybe we can get our foundation set up and start to do some of those things.
Excellent. Well, that's the end of the questions that I have for you for this segment. Why don't we take a break?
Okay, great. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back and Anne's going to wrap up here by putting me on the civil engineering hot seat. We'll be back in just a minute.
Welcome back, Anthony, and welcome back, everybody who's watching us. We're glad that you're back. So, Anthony, here's another question. Now, you're in the hot seat, right? So I hope you wiggle around a little bit. Here's the career elevator advice question. If you got into an elevator with a civil engineering student and had about 30 to 40 seconds with them, what would you say? What career advice would you give them?
So I would say to them that what you've learned in school from a technical background is going to be very helpful for you, but you're going to need to learn the non-technical skills to be very successful, meaning how to communicate effectively with people, how to lead people in projects. And you need to spend time learning those skills because that's what's going to differentiate you from all the other people out there. And I would spend whatever time you can doing that. And the other thing that I would say to them related to that, but just in general, is build good habits by showing up every day to work, showing up every day at home, and just building consistency and good habits into everything that you do. And if you do that, it's like you're going to build momentum and you're going to get better every day. And that's what's going to help you to be successful.
What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night? I think at this point, just what would keep me up at night is making sure that I'm supporting everybody that I need to support. And what I mean by that is my family at home and my family at EMI, right? You know, when you have your own business, you're responsible for these people's families, right? Their paychecks and their families. And so I could take that very seriously every day when I show up. And at home, like I said, you want to make sure that your kids, your spouse, that they can be successful. And if there's something that you can do, and that could be as easy as making them a good breakfast every day, or, you know, helping them find a resource they need, helping them with their homework. So I think what keeps me up at night is just like, you know, am I doing enough? Right? Because I think there is a fine line where you want to do enough, but they also have to figure out how to do some things on their own. And that's always, I think, a tough thing to navigate because I think as a parent, you kind of don't want to let your kid not be successful. And the same thing with someone you're managing or mentoring. So I think it's a fine line that you have to try to walk. But I think it's an important one because you do want to give someone support, but also let them develop.
Okay. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think we should know about you?
I mean, I think the only other thing that I'll say is, and I think I talk about this with our team at EMI a lot, is you have to have a massive belief in yourself to be successful. And I say that because, you know, I was doing civil engineering. And when I told people I'm going to start a company to help engineers have better people skills, they were like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, you just became an associate at this consulting firm, ENR 500, your wife's pregnant. Like, why would you throw all that away type of thing? I mean, I had family members tell me that. And thankfully, I didn't listen. But I only didn't listen because I really thought I could do it. You know, I had read a lot of stuff. I was big in Tony Robbins and kind of built my confidence up. And I still try to maintain that mindset every day today, right? Every time a client says, there's no way you could do this project this fast, or, you're building, this podcast is not going to grow, right? When we started the podcast, no engineers are going to listen to a podcast about their careers. When we did the first podcast, The Engineering Career Coach, that podcast was ultimately cited by Forbes.
Oh my gosh.
So, but again, I tell people that story because if you stop just because someone tells you to stop, then you might be missing out on a lot of stuff. There's been a couple clients, we reached out to them to see if they'd be interested in training, and they ended up becoming long-term clients. And I tell our team members, the first response that I got from them was 2 words: not interested. And I said, well, listen, let us do a complimentary lunch webinar. Let us try some stuff out. They're like, okay. And then you do it. And they're like, this is great. We want to do training. So my point is that it's good to have a chip on your shoulder. And it's good to say, believe in yourself. You got to build yourself up, and people around you can help you with that, because there's going to be plenty of times in your career where someone's going to tell you, I don't think you can pull that off, right? Like, I don't know if you can manage this project. I don't know if you're ready for that. And you got to push through that. And you got to say, I want to give it a shot. I believe in myself. And if you don't believe in yourself, that's where you can get some coaching, get some mentoring, and try to help you build yourself up. And a lot of times you can believe in yourself by building up your skill sets, right? Reading more books, going to more courses, because that knowledge makes you more confident. Like, hey, I can do this now that I've learned this. And so that's something that I would tell people is that, you have the ability to do a lot, and you can't let other people tell you that you can't, because it's not up to them. It's up to you, essentially. And so we've had people at EMI that will get hired, and they'll be like, hey, I'm going to be an administrative assistant, and we'll turn them into a designer, leader, project manager, right? Because if you believe in them and they believe in themselves and you give them the tools, they can do it, right? And so I would just say you need to push yourself. You don't want to get comfortable, and you certainly don't want to let anyone dictate what you can do, because again, it's not up to them. It's up to you. And I would say that's like, I constantly, the way that I cultivate this mindset is I'm constantly watching movies around stuff like this, right? Like the Karate Kid, right? Like he couldn't do it. You're not going to beat all these guys. And he did it. And like Rocky IV, I love that. When he fights against Drago and they're like, this guy's a machine. There's no way you're touching him, and Rocky's story. I mean, I know these are movies and they're generally like false stories, but they are good for helping you build your confidence and see someone do something that people told them they couldn't. That might give you the energy to do something that you were a little bit on the fence about.
My favorite movie is The Wizard of Oz. It's a quest movie. People told Dorothy that, she was going to get eaten by the witch and all that stuff. But she persisted, and she had friends. She coached them, developed them, and, they were a team, just like you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Anthony, you are a very old soul, I think. You are wise beyond your years, I think.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for sharing your heart and your soul with us. They're both very large. So, thank you for being with us, and I wish you more of the best.
That's great. Well, Ann, thank you for pushing me to do the interview, because, I haven't really been interviewed on the podcast myself, which has been a fun thing to do. And, it's nice for me also to be able to share some of the lessons. I mean, I've got to interview 500 people plus. Yeah. And so I feel like there's a lot of knowledge there, and we can continue to share it through the different channels at EMI. We'll continue to do that. So thank you for pushing me and for taking the time to interview me.
Oh my goodness. My pleasure. All right. Take care.
Thanks, Ann. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ann. I'm used to doing the interviewing, so it was a little different with the tables turned, but I hope that I gave you some information that you could take and use in your career to be successful as an engineer. And if you liked the video, please subscribe to our channel here. We do put out videos like this on a weekly basis to help engineers become better managers and leaders. I hope to see you next week.